I'm Carrie Zier, VP of eXp Luxury, and I am thrilled to be with you today on Luxury Legends and Leaders. And boy, do we have some amazing legends in this field. You know, we kicked off in January developing your niche, and at eXp Realty, we have so many ways to develop your niche, whether it's luxury, new homes, sports and entertainment, and land and ranch. Today, the focus is on land and ranch. And I'm so excited about this because when you truly pour into a niche such as this, amazing results can come from it. But a lot of people ask, what is land and ranch and how would I break into that? So today I have some amazing guests. I have Taryn King, I have Michael Lugo, I have Monica Faulkner, and you guys have been amazing in this field. And I'm just honored to be on with all of you when it comes to discussing this niche. So I know we're streaming live on many platforms right now, but let's give our audience a little background on all of you, like your years in the business and really how did you break into land and ranch? It's such an exciting niche.
Hey, Carrie, how are you? Thanks for having us today.
Yes, love it. And I love your hat, Taryn. I want one.
You got to get some camo in there, land and ranch.
Yes, I know. With my glitter and camo, I'm on.
Ooh, there we go. Well, so I will tell you, this is one of my favorite topics, not just because we're talking land and ranch, but because we're talking niching down. And I think it is absolutely essential in today's market, to be quite honestly, with all of the threats that we have coming at us as traditional realtors. If you think you are going to be a generalist and have a lifelong career in real estate, I will preach it all day long. I think you are at risk. And one of the most fun things about niching down is you can niche into anything. For me personally, horse was my first word. I grew up in the horse industry. I went to college for equine business. I did all the things, trainer, manager, started a horse rescue, realized I needed to make a little bit more money to be able to make a difference in the horse industry that I loved. And I kind of stumbled into real estate, actually in Boston, 12 years ago now, and never knew that you could create a whole business off of selling horse properties. That blew my mind when I came out here to Colorado in 2008 and then again in 2015. So I struggled in real estate for about 5 years trying to be a traditional residential agent in a market that was just flooded with agents. And I didn't know how to differentiate myself. And when I finally gave myself permission, I think that's the key phrase there, to dive in and actually niche down into what I was passionate about, the properties I loved, the people I wanted to help, that's when my business took off. And that was about 2017 when I created Horse and Hearth, which is now my team. I'll talk about horse properties and land and ranch all day long, but I know we've got some other A players over here as well.
No, I love that. And you said everything I have been preaching for years is, when you specialize in anything, it's just like, I know we compare a lot to doctors, but it's the truth. I mean, would you rather go to a general practitioner or would you go, if you have a heart problem, you're going to a heart specialist. If you have, you go to the specialist, you go to the orthopedic that has had years of training in it. And I do love that everything you said. And in a market like we are now, to really develop a niche means everything and really being the expert in it. And a lot of people ask, but what if I haven't, what if I don't have the years of experience in that? And I know we've got different stories and different paths. So I want to hear more from Monica and Michael, if you all want to chime in too, and then we're going to compare and really talk about breaking into this industry. So Monica, you want to?
Sure. So I am a farm girl. I've had my real estate license for 20 years. I'm second generation real estate, and did residential for a while. I have been full-time for almost a decade, but then a couple years ago, and I had an interesting story I was just happened to be selling a farm and saw a huge need. And I was like, gosh, I love this. I love the farms. I love what it is. I can make a difference because I have the knowledge. I live it every day. I am a farm girl. I get up, boots in the morning, feed horses, take care of dogs. And I'm really ingrained into that industry. And that particular instance said, we need people who are are pros at what we do and really understand that aspect. And to your analogy about medical, I said the other day, I said, would you go to a foot doctor when you had a heart attack? And they were like, wow, that makes a whole lot of sense. You all do the same thing, but you don't all have the same knowledge. So yeah, and that's kind of what's put me in my spot as the expert in my region, is like, she knows it. So
love that. So awesome.
That's awesome.
And a great background. Michael, I know you are luxury real estate and land and ranch. And,
and sports and entertainment.
I love that. I know.
Yeah, I'm lucky though. I got one of the guys on my team was a professional basketball player for 17 years. So he's really, friends with all the agents and the wealth management people that take care of those athletes. But yeah, my name is Michael Lugo. I specialize in land and ranch and luxury assets, not just homes. Land is definitely a different game. You're not selling a house, you're selling vision, potential, and strategy. I got started in this game back in 2012. My journey is a little bit different. I was in new home sales and did that for about 4 years and found a gap and, got licensed in 2015. One of my first deals was with a gentleman who's still a client of mine to this day. And I sold his house and did that. It was probably in 48 hours, got this thing sold. And it closed in a week, and his name's Charlie, came out and he said, Mike, from now on, you are going to be my real estate agent for every real estate transaction I do. And I've already sold, 4 ranches with him and 2 other homes. And, but that was my first ranch deal was with this gentleman. And it was a huge learning curve for me. I had a partner in it as well that kind of guided me through that. But definitely, want to talk about ways that you can advertise yourself and get into this niche. It's really most agents avoid it with land because it's it's harder, it's slower, it's less understanding. But definitely if you lean into the opportunity, the reward is much greater for those patients and whatnot.
That is that leads us into, I think there's a lot of confusion, and Taryn, you and I have talked about this a lot. When we say land and ranch, I feel like people think if they're not from Montana, Colorado, or Texas, then there's no land and ranch. And Monica, you're on the East Coast, so I need you to take up for this. But I was driving. Actually, I have a home in Georgia, and I was driving to Miami, and I was, I passed Ocala and then like the Jacksonville area, and I was seeing all this, and then I get down and there's outskirts of South Florida that are heavy horse properties and all that. And I was thinking, I think there's a misconception when it comes to what is could I be a land and ranch realtor? So let's dive deep into that. Is it just farms? Is it just land? Is it ranches? What makes a land and ranch property, and why is this division exploding like it is?
I know.
I know. You're like, let's go. I know.
Let's go.
I would just say the big part about it, what I'm leaning into this year, is the and of land and ranch. It is land, it's farms, it's ranch, it's ag, it's equestrian properties, it's development, it's infill. It is a small little, I have a less than an acre lot listed right now. That's land. And so there's a big part of people have a misunderstanding of, we're not cowgirls, we're not cowboys, we're not in Texas, we're not in Montana. I grew up in Boston. Land and ranch.
Yeah. Well, I love that, because that, to me, that's the biggest, when we talk about misconceptions, is in this area. If you're looking behind me, I'm downtown Nashville, but I will tell you, there's so many amazing farm properties. There's land, there's out in the counties, it's not just this, even if you're in the city, there's still those suburbs that are around you that have all this. So
I was outside of Charlotte, and I live on 250 acres, and I have people calling every day. It's everywhere around us. And it's not just horses. It's people who just want room to breathe. They want out of the city. They want recreation. They want to ride a 4-wheeler. They want, hunting, whatever their desire is to be. It doesn't necessarily have to mean that they're going to go out and put some cows. But yeah, on the East Coast, we have dairy farms, we have agriculture, we have all those things. And it's that way in California. We have agents out there that are, telling us about farms that are listed. So yeah, for sure. I will say here, we don't use the word ranch on the East Coast. So that's been a little bit of a training thing I've had to do with my clients. They'll be like,
Agree.
a ranch, I'm like, all right, we're just going to substitute farm. It's just going to be on the sign. So there's some language things that go on, but don't even let that.
Well, the term within how we brand it with EXP, of course, is land and ranch. But I agree with you, and that's why I really thought today was so vital to bring this out, because and I'm with you, Monica, on the East Coast. I think everything's a farm, and I love it because I learned, because growing up, I thought a farm meant, like cows and chickens. And then farm became like a niche in itself, like, especially on the East Coast, like you said, like, I've had a person like, they've got bootloads of money. They've got, 1,000 acres. And they're like, Carrie, will you list my farm? Well, I'm thinking, like acre cows and chickens. They're like, and I get there and it's like this estate. It is a ranch. We just don't say ranch on the East Coast. So, all right, Michael, tell us more about you, where you're from, and the land and ranch. Where are you? I think it's Texas.
I'm in Texas. I'm in San Antonio, Texas. And so down here, I specialize in farm and ranch. I do a lot of developments and represent different developers. So it's very different. And this niche that I got into is, building those relationships with not only builders, surveyors, land guys, even getting with your, with these developments that we have, there's a lot. It's very different. You're dealing with utility access, topography, exemptions, development potential. And so when you're talking to a lot of these people, you got to think not just like an agent, but think about the vision of what something can become. A house is what it is, a land is what it can become. And being able to understand that and kind of guide your client through that process. But like getting in, like y'all were talking earlier about, like, man, if I don't have that background, how would I get into it? I didn't have that background starting off in new home sales, but I like to say that we're in the people business and building relationships, and you never know who you're going to run into. And, I had an interior designer that referred a deal to me, and it ended up being a listing that I have right now for 37 million. That's a beautiful big ranch in Blanco, Texas, with live water. And when you get something like that, there's, you could have your recreational buyer that buys this, which is a huge buy. But also there's that development opportunity, and you have to think about access, water, utilities, and, getting into this. I guess what I'm trying to say is, the more you market yourself and be consistent online, if land and ranch is something that you want to get into, you need to dive into the community, meet with your city councils and meetings that happen on, and the development opportunities that are going on, and just really rubbing shoulders with as many people as possible in that area, and kind of thinking outside the box, if that makes sense.
It does. And which leads us to, okay, if we are talking to agents that really have a desire, they're seeing the opportunities in their area.
Right.
What are some of the obstacles? Because it sounds, I want to make it approachable for agents to say, yes, I can do this. But there's definitely, even, we did a new home certification.
Sure.
And it's a different language when we talk to builders. It's a different language when we're dealing with land and ranch. So what are some of those like when you're sealing those deals, when you're gathering that information, what makes you specialize in this, that you are actually getting the deals and having successful sales in it?
Well, I will say, with the land and ranch division that we have at EXP, there's a lot of stuff within that platform where I've been up against, 3 other agents or 6, sometimes 6 agents. And the more prepared you are and the more geographically competent you are in that area, and understanding that what's happening in the next 5 years in this area, if I had to start all over again, diving into it, I would only focus in probably 2 areas that I'm really geographically competent in, and just really understanding what's happening, what's the development trajectory for that area, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, the more competent you are in is really going to help you succeed in getting that listing.
So, Monica, Taryn, what are some terms, like terminology, like how are you winning these listings, and what's the knowledge that someone that wants to break in that they need to have?
So as the agent director of the Land and Ranch division with EXP, and having been working on this project since I joined EXP in 2023, that was a big part of why, and like what we were focused on when we built this, because I personally had to figure out everything on my own when I decided to niche down into horse properties. And I'm a lifelong equestrian, right? But there's still, and even coming from Boston real estate, when I came to Colorado, water rights, I was like, what do you mean you don't have water? Like, that was a foreign world for me as somebody who had spent 5 years already in real estate. So it's been interesting. So we built an entire certification course, as well as weekly masterminds, to make sure, like, the way I talk about it is, it's basically, I want to build a runway into this world to blow the gates off of this industry that has a history of a little bit of gatekeeping, because it is very much like a handshake, a face-to-face, who network, and people protect that, right? But I think the beautiful part about what we have as a culture at EXP is, like, we live collaboration. And so it is intimidating to walk into this space, because you can get yourself in some hot water when it comes to easements, water rights, mineral rights, zoning, all of these different things. Never mind, I mean, Monica and I could probably do a whole session on, like, equine properties and the terminology and the specifics of horse facilities. But, like, there are very technical skills, and I think all of us have been doing it for a long time. It was actually interesting building this, because I had to slow myself down and go, this stuff is second nature to me now. Yeah. But what does a new agent need to know?
I think y'all can agree too, like, being as resourceful as possible. Like, we are, like, what you guys created with the Land and Ranch and EXP, we're here to help everybody. If there's things that you come across, I know I can reach out to you guys at any point, and just, we're still learning every day. There's always something new on these ranches that we come across. But being resourceful as possible and having the right people in your corner that want to see you succeed is huge.
To piggyback on what Taryn said, I think one of the biggest mistakes I see when agents come into this, they think, okay, I'm going to slap EXP Land and Ranch, or another one, and say, I'm an expert. Well, I'll tell you, I once you think you know everything, it will humble yourself, look like an idiot. And so but what I will say is, I've never been in a group of people with a common interest that all want to help each other. The tools are there. If somebody that wants to break into this, I just really recommend that they contact other people that are doing well in the industry, that know it, and say, hey, I want to come chat with you for this listing appointment. I want to go walk the land with you. What do you look for when you're walking the fence line? What does this mean? And when you sit down, go to a listing presentation. I mean, I can tell somebody exactly what kind of soil they have, what kind of trees they have, how much is in pasture, floodplain. I mean, what are their access? What's their zoning is? I sit down and I blow my clients away because of the homework that I did before I got there. And the tools that we're given with the EXP Land and Ranch, using Landgate and Land ID and all these great things that we have. But don't be afraid to ask for help, because at any point that if you walk in and you think that you're just, I'm going to pretend like I know this, I'm an expert, I did the certification class, as it is, until your boots on the ground, you're not going to.
I think it's smart too to get started with, like, start small. If you really want to start understanding land, let's say it's just 1 acre lot, and you're helping a client understand, okay, they're going to need to go to a builder and understand that process. That builder is going to, one of the first things they're going to look at is the topography of that land. How much cost am I going to put into this slab? And starting small with that land, where you really understand it before you start diving into these bigger properties. I think that'd be a good starting point.
Yeah.
Well, it's like when you break into real estate. Let's say you're day one getting your real estate license. You just think, like, you love it. You have a passion for homes. You have a passion for people, and you're selling homes. You still have to learn your market. You still have to learn how to show this property. It's still breaking in. This is just another level. And I like what all of you have said. I love our tools at EXP, of course. But if you're just out there with any business, you just don't turn on a niche. there's definite ways to break in. And I love our branding behind things. I love our systems behind it. You have a community, but it's still learning the trade. But if you're not growing, you're dying, right? There's just another way to improve your business, because with any of these niches, whether it's land and ranch, sports and entertainment, wherever, it does trickle down to your main real estate business as well. The more you specialize, the greater your business is, because it overlays to other areas in the business. So I love what you all said. I definitely don't want it to sound intimidating. Any niche is something you learn. What I love is our community around it. I'm a big story girl. I love to hear some stories. So tell us either a win or a lose. And I have many too. I can tell both ways of you in this business, of what you've taken away from that experience. Because I know I always say we fail forward every day. We do have successes, but we do have failures. But those failures increase every time our knowledge and really where we take it to the next level. So what were some of your breakthroughs as you were building your business in this?
I will just, as you were just talking there, it was making me think, like, no matter what niche you are in, the key component to it is it has to be authentic to who you are as a person. And especially in land and ranch, because these people will sniff that out, right out the gate. If you are not, and it doesn't mean you have to live on a ranch, you have to have a bunch of 40 cattle in the back, 40, but you have to care enough to know what is important to these people. And that is the blood, sweat, and tears that they have shed to build this lifestyle. And then to tie it in with a story, one of my current listings, a $4.8 million horse property here in the foothills of Colorado. And it was actually a referral from an agent in my marketplace who is closer geographically to this property. But that's the beauty about building yourself into a niche. Like, I am known as the horse girl out here, right? I'm the horse property expert. And so she was in my market. She could have actually handled this, but she knew she was out of her element. She referred it to me. She came on the listing appointment to shadow me, to say, hey, how can I learn how to do this land and ranch world? I said, no problem. Absolutely. Would love to help. And when we did the whole dog and pony show, is what I call it, right? We did the property tour. We sat down at the kitchen table. Here's our presentation. She goes, okay, Mr. Seller, do you have any questions? And he goes, he's like this, 80-year-old cowboy. And he just goes, yeah, you know what? You got any horse injuries? I was like, oh, buddy, I've got a plate in my elbow.
Oh, that's awesome.
And so that is how we secured this almost $5 million listing. He didn't care about the marketing and the stats and all this. He wanted to know that I knew who he was and who the buyer was, and I was going to be able to find them. And that's, plate in my elbow. That's what secured me a $5 million listing.
I love that. That's awesome.
I do too.
And that's what I was saying earlier. Like, it's really your relationships and finding common ground. And when you can relate with somebody, man, in 5 minutes, they're your, your best friend. And it's really what we are. We're literally in the people business, and building these beautiful relationships and learning how to hold on to those as well is super important.
And this means you become like family by the time you
they do.
I've been to weddings. I'm a godmother to somebody I never knew before. and on the stories, you sometimes have to be an educator. I can't tell you how many clients. I have several buyers right now that we have saved our whole life, and we've always wanted to live on a farm. And they've seen it on Instagram, and they've watched it in movies and Hallmarks, and they come and say, okay, I want to go buy a farm. And you have to educate them on all the things that go, and they show up and they see this view and it checks that emotional box. And I'm like, okay, now this is what you told me you wanted. You wanted cows, you wanted this many horses, and this is not going to fit. So you sometimes have to educate the actual buyer, the consumer, being, you need X number of acres for this. This soil's not going to feed. You're going to spend a mortgage on feeding hay if you want this property. And then they come back to you at the end, and I've been like kissed in the face, like, oh my gosh, we would have made the worst mistake. So sometimes it's not the quickest thing, and they appreciate you, and it builds that trust, and that gives you that credibility. So where a lot of agents will be like, yeah, let's write a contract. Sometimes that's not in the best interest of your buyer. And that particular story really truly happened. They went, they looked, it was like, oh, look at the mountain view, but it was like all rock, like they would have never had any pasture on the whole 20 acres. So they ended up in the most gorgeous place, and and I was her bridesmaid when they got married. So
Wow.
it was
That's,
never met them before the phone call, I want to go buy a farm. So
yeah.
You know, I think being showing your authenticity matters so much in our business. You know, I've had agents that try to take on listings that, you know, are overpriced. And I mean, my feedback, you know, I was coaching one agent and I said, no, go back to them and just advise them, if they don't want to list at this price, then maybe we shouldn't list in this market.
Mhm.
And they were like, what if I lose it? I'm like, you're not going to sell it anyway. So they went back, they said that. Actually, the seller appreciated the honesty, ended up listing it at the correct price and selling it. So, you know, I think, you know, what you are saying, your specialty is land and ranch. You do know the language. And when you bring your personality, your traits and to the table, you know, that wins deals. A lot of this, so, you know, it is, again, people are out there thinking, I love this. I do have a passion for land and ranch and farms and, you know, land in general. What are some of the key areas? I know we have this Taryn built through Land and Ranch, and you were so instrumental in that. What are those key aspects that if someone was breaking in that, like even the program we have, because the program is a brand, it is a community, it is products that you use to help you. There's still education behind it that still we have to pour into ourselves. What are some of those things though that we have that does help them? Like, you know, it does give them a running start to start a niche with Land and Ranch.
I will just plug our spring summit for tomorrow because so we have a spring summit virtually tomorrow from 10 to 1 on Mountain. I'm sure you can find it all over any of our social media pages, but a big part of that is it's open to anybody, any brokerage, any market, any experience level, because we want to help agents who have, like, this is what I call my soapbox speech, right? If we are losing land, and we're losing land at an alarming rate and like across the board. And so the way I look at it is, if you have any interest in this world, we need the help, right? We need agents who care, who have the expertise, who have the community and the support behind them to make a difference in these transactions for their communities. And so that's something that tomorrow we're going to be talking how multiple different agents scaled their business by niching down in those different worlds, right? We've got ranchers, we've got land development, acquisitions, equestrian. So that is 100% something that we have built into with our community. And I'll just say, one of my favorite things too about our community is that, like, I'm 12 years in the industry. We come together every Tuesday, and I am blown away by some of the stuff that I learn in different markets, in different regions, in different areas. I had no idea that Florida was a massive cattle state.
Yes.
No idea.
Mhm.
And that's just something you never know.
Yeah, just to support the summit, just for example, my daughter's getting married on Friday, so I don't get to be there tomorrow, and I'm sad. As much as I feel like I'm very knowledgeable. Like, I won't miss a Tuesday. I'm sad to miss. I mean, I know I'll be able to go back and watch it, but I want to be there. I want to hear it. I want to be engaged in it, because there's never a time we don't learn from each other. And again, back to my statement, once you ever think you've learned too much, I mean, you might as well quit. I mean, when you think you can't grow anymore. So you always need to learn. But yeah, so it doesn't matter how seasoned you think you are, that summit, I guarantee you'll walk away with some kind of knowledge you didn't know when you left. And if nothing else, I mean, you'll enjoy the community that we've created.
That's so amazing. And to grow in any business is the community, the networking, the stuff. Are you all more listings or sellers or buyers? And what closes more deals for you? Like, how do you get in with these? I would love to learn more, because some people ask, is this more of a lead generation for listings, or are you working with more buyers?
I got right now I have definitely more listings than buyers.
It's incredible.
And yeah, more listings than buyers. But the buyers that I do have, I love being out there and showing these properties. But to kind of go back to, like, you know, if you're willing to learn, you know, what others avoid, there's a massive opportunity in land and ranch. The niche rewards patience, knowledge, and vision.
Ooh.
And they're not making any more of land, right? And especially in today's market, it can be quite volatile with everything going on. And the residential side of things, I don't know how it is in y'all's market, but it's definitely slowing down. But land over here I'm freaking doing land every day, and it's a great, whether I'll go do a 1 acre parcel. And what helps too, when you're doing these land deals and ranches, your typical, what sets us top producers aside, what I feel is, when you're doing the videography and the photography, I like my videographers to tell a story, not to sell a ranch, right? And I like creating that narrative. And if y'all look at some of my listings, you'll see that they're telling the story. And I've had so many people call me and they're like, man, I feel like I belong there. Like that story that's told and this and that. But there are a lot of agents out there that's just, it's the pictures, it's the video, it's the twilight. But man, if you put a story on it and you really sell it and you believe in what you have and love what you're selling, I mean, you'll get rid of those. You'll sell those listings quick.
And that goes along with knowing your niche, knowing your buyers.
Right.
From my buyers, they don't want to go to the house first. If their horses aren't
right.
happy and what their horses are going to eat, they don't even need to go in the house. So
residential is more emotional and land's more strategic, right? On how they think they want to.
No,
right.
I disagree because it's like sellers, one of my biggest burdens is trying to help a seller navigate the emotional value that they've placed on their place, the sweat equity that they've put in it.
Sure.
Then down to the real numbers. A buyer has to be able to visualize themselves there. Like
yes, a buyer,
lifestyle, both. So there's so much emotion that goes into it, and you kind of have to do your homework. I do a really strong surveying, really get to know my buyers and my sellers. So I know what they're looking for, and I feel like that I can kind of circumvent some of the roadblocks that we get into.
Right.
But it's very emotional usually. It's definitely, I need this many acres. I know I have this many horses, but they want to feel like, a certain way.
Yeah, I guess on the development side, they're all like, getting the thing, Yeti's in the back, everybody's driving around.
I know there's a confusion out there on new development and land.
Yeah.
How would you differentiate those?
To what now?
What is the difference? I know many people do work in new development, which is land as well. But then we're also talking about land and ranch.
Right.
So to me, there's a big
Monica had it right.
I think people confuse them as well.
Yeah, Monica had it right. I mean, like, y'all are dealing with equestrian and people that are buying this ranch to utilize and a vision of what they can. I do a lot of the development side of it. I also do the ranch side of things, but the development side of things, it's, man, can we make this a high density neighborhood, or is this going to be more of a boutique development? So it's definitely
and ranch is preserving the land more, and
it's seller specific because that's one of the things you tiptoe when you first meet your sellers, because there are some sellers you walk in and say, hey, this is perfect for solar or data or new development. They're going to kick you out of that kitchen so fast.
Yeah, exactly.
Because you even thought about it. So you kind of have to feel those things out. And like I said, I live on 250 acres. We told our kids that if they sold it to development, we will haunt them after we're gone.
We will disown you after I'm gone.
We've maintained it. We've kept it, whatever.
Right.
So it comes.
There is a big difference. I just wanted us to state that.
But
I do get asked that a lot.
Some sellers are just bring me the highest dollar. I don't care what you do with it. And so you can still be land and farm. It could have been somebody's cattle farm forever. And now they don't know what goes on it. They just want the highest dollar to retire. So they very much intertwine. You just have you have to just know your buyers and your sellers, know your sellers and where their heart's at. Like I said, because
when they want to build, residential properties on land, that would definitely fall into new development. Land and ranch is more of, like you said, but it is knowing the land, knowing the terminology, the acreage, how it performs. I mean, there's different, and like you said, Taryn, and Florida has what it grows on that land. The agricultural side is very different than land in, California. And we think of LA, we think of luxury properties. We don't think of the outskirts that does have this incredible land too, and what it grows on it. So I think it's an amazing niche. And I ask about buyers and sellers because I wanted to give agents a preview basically on how you're getting this business, because I do think it is a lead generator when you are speaking about this and being able to articulate, selling and buying, land and ranch.
Carrie, to circle up on that, I will tell you, my team and I are signing 6 listings this week, every single one of them from social media. 5 of them are from our horse properties out here on the front range. But social media, I think and that's, again, I'll plug the summit. That's what I'm going to be speaking on tomorrow, is how to build your online pipeline in an offline niche. Because this is very much like an offline face-to-face. But if you're missing, like, my entire business is built off of social media.
Yeah.
And I think that's a really it's just the future of our industry.
Organic leads. I mean, social media, that's your sphere of influence. And that's what I was saying earlier. The more and more you're consistent with advertising yourself of the market that you want to be in as that expert. I get calls all the time because of our consistent, information that we're putting up and listings, but even just being informative in the market. Doesn't have to just be listings. And I get calls all the time. Hey man, I got a friend, they're trying to sell their ranch. Can you help us out? And I'm like, yeah, let's go.
To not scare off others, they're like, oh gosh, because I am the worst social media person. I hate to be in front of the camera. It's why it's crazy that I'm even on here. So that whole get in front of it, talk about each other, talk about myself, and do all the fun things that Taryn and Liz and all them are so great at, I stink. But I still am putting myself out there, like just pictures of my farm and riding my, and my listing videos that tell that story that you were talking about, Michael. And I will still say 90% of mine come from social media. And if it's not from the person who's selling it, it's like, hey, I saw Monica farms and she's a farm girl and you need to call her. And I've got 7 coming in the next 2 weeks, and they've all come from that
social media. Yeah,
it's still awesome. A sphere of influence, but it's because they just see. And like I said, if you're scared, you're like me and you're not real good at doing all the things on social, don't let it discourage you, but just get something out there that makes you present, relevant to the world and the niche you want to be in.
Absolutely.
I agree. Well, I believe in any niche, the 2 major things is not only knowledge, of course, with all of it and your brand, but the use of AI. I have to always preach that, and social media. You have done an amazing job. Someone asked, what do you use? If you want to answer that question.
So I built my entire business on Facebook, and that was starting in 2017. Quite honestly, my brand started, Monica will understand this, because I wanted to present horse properties to the consumer the way that the buyer wants to see them, which is the barn first. And I, as a horse person, was appalled at the way these listings were shown, where maybe there's 1 or 2 pictures of the barn. So I just started posting other people's listings. I asked permission. I got permission. I built that, what was a blog originally in those days, into a Facebook page, into a platform that I have other agents consistently asking me to share their listings, even be like, I don't charge for it, but I've been told, like, Taryn, you should charge for this, right? For marketing, because I get around 30,000 views on each post. And so it was just strictly putting properties on Facebook, but understanding the buyer, understanding what was important to these people, because I lived it. And then I built my business in the beginning off of paid social media ads. I had, back in the day, it was 2017 to about 2019, in the heyday of that. It does still work. I do still run them. I don't really need to anymore. I do it just because I like to kind of test my skill set in the algorithm. But it's something that, to speak to the niche, when I actually paid a lot of social media marketing companies and then realized what they were doing, took that information, twisted it with the niche aspect, which I call the 10X factor, and then started running my own ads. And I actually sat down with some of those companies after the fact, and they looked at my numbers and said, Taryn, we can't touch this. We don't know what you're doing, but we cannot touch this, like, cost per lead and the number of leads you were getting. That I was at the heyday, I was getting between 30 to 40 leads a day. About 40 to 50% of those were legitimate buyers.
That's awesome.
It
Yeah,
was
that's great.
insane. I had to
That's
actually
good.
at one point turn them off because I
Yeah.
couldn't handle that many, right? And that was, I marketed in Colorado, but of course it was like I ended up getting leads across the country because nobody else was doing it. And
Yeah.
that the difference is that you can differentiate yourself so much that it works still.
That's
And
awesome.
I absolutely agree with Facebook. I mean, I built on my business page to 80,000 people, and I did it just like Taryn did.
Yeah.
I paid for ads, but I was producing content that mattered to real estate. And
Yeah.
so when you put yourself out there, that is your brand. I think it's just crucial to do that. I think Instagram is a great one as well,
Yeah.
but Facebook it's tried and true. That's for sure. Monica.
well, and the flip side of that is not even just lead generation. I'd say 80% of my buyers come from Facebook, getting in those
Mhm.
groups that are relevant to what I'm selling and to best represent my sellers. You know, I pay someone to kind of troll that and make sure that, oh, they're looking for this, it's yours, put it in there. And then it turns around and comes back to you because somebody else has seen what you have done and what you're saying about those properties. And that's where a lot of my leads have come back to sell their property. Like, I've seen what you've done.
Yeah.
For this one. I want you to do it for mine. So it's to just support what Taryn said about Facebook. It's pretty amazing.
You also have to know your demographic though. And I think that's important because my demographic is like, I mean, quite honestly, it's like 45 to 55-year-old
Right.
women who are on Facebook. Like those are, it's my horse people, right? And so if your niche is something a little bit different, just understand who your people are. And maybe if you're like a first-time home buyer niche, or if you're in luxury, it may be more Instagram. I've moved into Instagram more over the last year. Certainly, I know a lot of agents who are crushing it on TikTok. I personally am.
Oh my God, I know.
It's not my world.
agents
Those aren't my people. Not my
One,
world.
one of my agents right now, his name, y'all look him up. His name's Ryan Noonan. Man, this guy, I mean, I can't do what I have a property. We're doing showcasing a property on the Guadalupe River, and this guy stands in the river, okay, and he's talking, and he's like, Guadalupe River, this and that, and he got, oh my God, I don't know how many leads out of that thing and how many hits, but his videos are so unique and very unorthodox on how it's traditionally done. But I've seen his stuff, and he is killing it on TikTok and YouTube.
Yeah,
Everywhere.
people love that authenticity.
Yeah.
Again,
That's the
not
key.
No,
I am
seriously,
not a
look up
social
Ryan
media
Noonan.
person, but I had a
It's
really
crazy.
stressful day one day, and I just videoed myself jumping in my pond before a cold water plunge.
Yeah.
I can't tell you how much
Yes.
engagement I got from that. And I was like, I thought I was just like,
Yeah.
I need a mental reset. So like somebody said a cold plunge would work, and it was February.
It
so I
worked.
jumped in, and oh my
That's
God,
awesome.
It was like,
It's
Yeah.
so true. Anytime, I say that for all agents, when
Yeah.
we show ourselves, I'll do
Yeah.
the most polished, post, and it gets, okay reviews. And then
Yeah.
I'll do just me running, telling my thoughts, and those get, thousands. I'm like, well, how does this work? But they do.
Yeah,
like
just
to see
being
you.
really you,
Yes.
right? And the authentic you, and just not thinking about it too much. And man, it's wild how many hits you get on that.
We had a question. Yes, EXP does have a new home certification. All of our divisions do have a certification. And before we leave, Taryn, I do want you to go back over the summit for tomorrow and what that entails. But just to wrap everything up, and ending with this, if you had, and this is my classic question because I love it, because you all are rock stars. You built this amazing business. If you had to start over and break in, what would you do? Like, how would you break into this business? Because I know you've had all these success stories, and you are at the top of your game. But what if I wanted to break in and I'm not land and ranch yet? How would I do that?
I would find somebody in my area that's really good at what they do, and let them go be a sponge. Go follow them. Go walk the property lines. Go listen to them. Just go learn and absorb. Especially, and even if, say, horse properties are not your niche and that's what's around you, you'll learn something from them. Then go do somebody that just does timber or does recreation or whatever. Just put yourself in those circles. Go network out. Networking around with other agents that may not even be the more transactional brokers are one of my biggest resources. just put yourself in those circles and don't be afraid to ask for help, because most of us are like, yes, come on, we want your help. We don't, we want you on the other side, and we will just share, no gatekeeping at all. So
I love that. Michael, you're starting over. How would you do it?
I said a little bit earlier, but if I were to start over, I would focus in 1 to 2 geographic areas. I'd learn everything about them, and I would partner with surveyors, builders, and as far as marketing, I would market education, not listings.
I love that. That's so true. That's spot on. It's just that, because it takes it all. It's a lot.
Everybody's marketing their listings, but I would it's like, I'd rather teach my audience and show them that I'm an expert and try and gain that trust through virtually and get those phone calls.
I love it. All right, Taryn, you're starting over. You don't have your horse experience. You just love land and ranch.
The big thing that I like, the only regret I have in this industry is not doing it sooner and holding myself back.
Yes.
Until, I felt like I had to prove myself in traditional residential. And I had brokers who told me no, you're, not yet, not you, not yet, not now. Right. And I wish I didn't listen to that for 5 years, because for 5 years I struggled to get business. My average price point was like $400K. Once I gave myself permission, my business exploded, and my average price point varies between like 1.1 and 1.5. But I wasted 5 years. What I will say is I do have agents who come to me and approach me. That's why I started a team, because I had agents approaching me saying, how do I do what you do? And I was like, I don't know. I'm like, I need some help. You want some leads? But I will tell you, I have a new agent who works with me, and she sat down with a lot of other brokers before we connected, and they all told her the same thing. No, not yet, not horse properties. Do something let me train you traditionally first. She and I sat down and I said, forget everything you've heard. Let's run. And her first listing is a $4.8 million horse property.
Woo!
That's something but it was because she found the right people to support her who were experienced, who were able to say yes. And now what she's doing is she's basically my assistant. She's my right-hand girl. I don't know how I would survive without her.
Yeah.
And I want to blank.
Yeah, exactly. She was like, I can help. What do you need help with?
That's awesome.
In exchange for that experience. So similar to what Monica was saying, find somebody that you can provide value to with the time you have in exchange for that knowledge that they have.
I love that. And I love the motto of just diving in, because you figure out the messy middle. The most successful people didn't have it all figured out when they started. So
what do they say?
There's no comfort there's no growth in comfort. What's the saying? When you stay in
get comfortable being
I was just
uncomfortable.
Gonna say, what do they say? The life you desire is always right outside your comfort zone.
That's
something
right.
I've always lived my life by. Yeah.
Well, you all have been absolutely fabulous. Has this not been an amazing Luxury Legends and Leaders? Taryn, give a quick lowdown for tomorrow's summit, and then we'll end with that.
We are virtual tomorrow from 10 to 1 Mountain Standard. Translate that into your own language. We've got 3 sessions. We actually have one of my favorite lenders who's a former appraiser coming on. He teaches at such a nitty-gritty level of how to price properties like an appraiser. He's going to teach us how to price properties when there's no comps, when you've got outbuildings, when the market's shifting. So that's going to be super high value. He's up first. Then we have a top producer panel, like I mentioned, of 4 different agents in different markets, different sub niches in land and ranch, talking about how they scaled, niche down to scale up. And then myself and Liz will be opening up the playbook on our social media, how we built everything and how we continue to take 5 listings a week on social media alone. So let's go.
There you go. Let's go.
Yeah, I'm excited. I can't wait to be there. I know it's going to be poured in with amazing information. So all of you listeners today, thank you. This has been incredible. I have learned so much. I'm ready to dive into land and rent. So,
You're in a good
until
spot.
next time, thank you all. And we'll see you next month on Luxury Legends and Leaders.